I recently came across this brand when I saw a mock-up for their upcoming field watch that is appropriately named the Scout. I loved that design and reached out to the owner Jeremy to ask if I could review one of his watches. The Sonoma is Goodspeed's second watch and is a vintage racing inspired chronograph that was successfully launched via Kickstarter last year. So I am a bit late to the Sonoma party, but I'm happy to share this with you anyway. The Sonoma is made in both quartz and mechanical variants with 4 options for different bezel and case configurations. The mechanical pieces retail at $395 US and the quartz at $185. Let's check it out. This case has some serious vintage vibes, drawing inspiration from vintage heuer pieces like the 1106 3P diver, as spotted by Microbrand. The tonneau style case measures 42mm in diameter, 46.5mm from lug to lug, and 13.7mm in height. The case is brushed on the top and bottom with polished sides and a polished bezel. Great choice here, and the polished beveled edges play with light beautifully. I opted to review the stainless steel case with the fixed Pepsi bezel. The finishing on the aluminium insert is excellent and the colors are spot on. The lugs are short, curved, and perfectly suit the case design. The lugs are not drilled through, but that isn't surprising given the beveled edge design of the case. There is a simple push-pull style crown at the 3 o'clock position that is accompanied by 2 chronograph pusher buttons. The crown grip is good and the operating experience is good too, without any crown or stem wobble. Flipping it over, you have a simple solid case back that screws down into the case. Nothing much to see here, but even without a screw down crown and pusher, this watch is rated for up to 100 meters of water resistance, so that's pretty cool. As with most chronographs, we've got a pretty busy dial here, but this one appears to be very well laid out and easy to read. This is a 2-register chronograph with a running seconds hand on the left and a 30-minute counter on the right. The registers are actually more intricate than they look, with flat marker rings and concentric ridges for the base subdials. The concentric ridges give it an almost glossy finish that looks pretty neat. There is an outer chapter ring that follows the same concentric ridge design with clearly printed seconds and minute markers. The legibility of this chapter ring is spot on and the finishing appears to be good as well. The loomed hour indices have a faux vintage finish and are a combination of rectangular and circular markers. They are well proportioned and well finished. The hands are filled with the same aged loom material and appear to be quite well finished for the price. The hour hand is an oversized arrow style hand and the simple design of the minute hands pairs well with it. The minute hand extends all the way up to the chapter ring and over it, which earns this watch some extra credit. The seconds hand is similar, making accurate timekeeping possible, which is what you'd expect from a racing chronograph. So Goodspeed have definitely done all the right things with the dial here. The finishing across the dial is very good. I only noticed a few microparticles on one hand and on the subdials, but none of this is visible to the naked eye and is more than acceptable for a $400 watch. All the loomed elements are using a yellowed or a faux patina style loom material. I'm not entirely sure what material they're using exactly, but it's a bit weaker than typical white superluminova, possibly because of the coloring added, but don't quote me on this. It glows reasonably bright initially, but is quicker to fade than your average C3 superluminova equivalent. Loom junkies might not approve of this, but for those of us that are less hardcore about loom, this is sufficient. This watch definitely earns extra credit for the large loomed circular hand element. I've tried on more than one occasion to enjoy the Seagull ST19 movement, but I don't think I can, and I've grown to actually dislike this movement, so take everything I say here with a pinch of salt because I'm clearly biased. Before you ask, yes, I'm aware of its history and the connection to the famous Venus 175, and I'm also aware that it is almost impossible to find a better chronograph movement at this price. I'm also very well aware of the cult-like following this movement has, but with each ST19 equipped watch, I feel frightened that I'm going to break something because of how delicate the entire experience feels. This isn't Goodspeed's fault, and if anything, the movement on this watch feels a bit sturdier than it did on the Laurier Gemini that I reviewed a while ago. If you do happen to agree with me but also like the design of this watch, Goodspeed has the same model available with the Miyota quartz movement. The ST19 boasts of a 51-hour power reserve, but I wasn't able to cross 40 hours with this watch. I attempted this a few times with no luck. Maybe I just didn't wind it enough. Maybe the ST19s just don't like me. Either way, I logged the accuracy of this watch for about 30 hours or so and observed an average accuracy of about -5 seconds per day. On paper, the 42mm diameter and 46.5mm lug-to-lug width might fool you into thinking that this is a small watch, but every millimeter of those 46.5mm is being utilized by the hefty tonneau-style case. The case is 13.7mm thick and has a fair bit of weight to it. This watch feels solid and almost has that chunk of metal feeling on the wrist. I think my 6¼ inch wrist is just about right for this watch and I wouldn't recommend it for wrists smaller than 6 inches. To wrap this up, I think this is a neat vintage racing inspired chronograph that is budget friendly. Goodspeed have done a good job in creating a dial that is both interesting and simple. The case is well designed and manufactured, and I can't really think of anything negative to say about it. I think the affordable watch market still has plenty of room for another racing inspired chronograph, and at $400, this watch is definitely a worthy contender. I'm starting to lean towards quartz and mecha quartz movements for entry level chronographs, and Goodspeed has one available too. So go check out their watches, you might find something you like, and definitely keep an eye out for their upcoming field watch, it's quite the looker. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to read the full review in the link below.